Is this thing on?
Hello? Do we have an
Is
audience
that a
yet?
normal intro for you guys?
Is there people here?
That's our new thing. We started. We developed a catchphrase that's completely original.
Yeah. Is this thing
Yeah,
on?
I've never heard it.
What is up, everybody? It's another episode. TGG Plus. I'm here as always with my co-host Evan Prince.
It's me.
But we have a guest here this week.
Returning once again.
Returning. What is this? 322?
Yeah, I think 3.
7?
It's 3 if we count the unaired first time.
That's true. Yeah.
That never aired?
It did,
It did,
air,
but
it's on
it's a long story.
It's on, yeah, it's a long
okay.
story. Yeah, 3 times. And then I think, we'll get into it. But we're going to talk about some stuff. I want to talk about Silent Hill 2 Remake a little bit, if you guys don't mind. It's like all I've been doing for the past week. So I
know nobody's really talking about it. You're not really seeing it anywhere or
Nobody's
anything.
It's a very underground subject.
Yeah, I figure we can kind of pioneer that a little bit.
Well, that's what I was saying.
saying.
I was like, this game came out and literally nobody's talking about it. It's kind of crazy. We should get on the air, get some mics in front of our faces. There's some other news, we'll go over. But before we get into that, I mean, Avalanche, it's been a long time since we've seen you. How's everything been? What you been up to?
Throwing down.
I'm getting a lot of tattoos, and I got my eye scarred. I don't know if it shows up on webcam, but I got my eye area scarred, which is sick.
How did that happen?
Oh, on purpose. I have a
You got it
buddy
done.
does scarification.
Oh,
Yeah.
I saw that. I knew that in my head. I don't know why I asked
grody.
that. Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't even know that was a thing until you posted that, to be honest.
Yeah, it was gnarly. He was doing scarification, and we all met up for a bachelor party in Florida, and I was talking about like potentially doing it, but he was so stoked on like doing his new stuff. He's like, "Come on, let me cut you," and I was like, "All right," and it ended up being cool as hell.
That is wild. What new tattoos did you get?
I got my neck done
Hell
since the
yeah.
last time I've been on here. Yeah.
So now, what does that mean? What does that text on your neck?
Violence. It has a very deep meaning to me. In terms of I enjoy violence.
I
You heard it here.
Yeah, that's the explanation. No retrospective needed on that tattoo.
Yeah.
I actually just scheduled. I haven't gotten a tattoo in like a year, and I just scheduled to get the rest of my sleeve finished up because I only have half right now, so I'm gonna get it all the way up to the top of the arm. It takes me forever. It takes me forever to pull the trigger. I don't know why, but if I'm out of it for too long, then I'm like hesitant to go back in.
Because it sucks getting a tattoo. It's like the worst thing ever.
It does kind of suck. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty awful. You and I were talking about tattoos a few weeks ago, and I was like, I don't even think I want any more. I might
think
actually get
that's
some ones I
fair.
have covered up.
Yeah.
That's totally fair. Yeah. My only thing is there's a tattoo shop in my neighborhood here in Tokyo, and I know the guy who does my tattoos now, and he kind of gives me a bit of a discount. So it's dangerous because I could be at the shop in 10 minutes and then come back and not have to worry about getting on a train or anything. So I've been getting covered, and it's not good for my future employment for sure.
If I was in a situation where I was getting like nice discounts or something, I might be a little bit more because it's just too expensive for me. It's like
expensive.
I'm paying a
Exactly.
bunch of money to have to sit there and do nothing and have like ink injected into my skin, which no hate, I have tattoos. I have several of them. It's
Yeah.
just now as the more I age, the more I'm like, oh, tattoo, $200.
It
Yeah.
sucks. It hurts super bad, and you're paying for
spend
the
that
for the
somewhere
privilege. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I could put that towards my new PS5 Pro.
You
Oh, there
could.
you go.
Your collector's
5.
edition.
Don't get 5.
Oh, he died.
Oh no, he's frozen on my screen with that look on his
Yeah.
face.
That's a pretty good look.
It's happening.
Oh,
Oh,
you're
there we
back.
go.
Am I back?
You're
Am I
back.
back?
Yeah.
Screen cap that look. It's iconic.
Well, I'm gonna take.
Yeah, it was
It's gonna
pretty
be.
good.
It's gonna be a thing you can use in chat.
Yeah, make that an
What do
emote.
they call those? Emotes. That's what it is. Fuck.
Yeah,
There
make
you
make,
go.
make that an emote.
Bro, I'm old. Holy shit.
I'm a permanent. I'll brand me as a permanent part of your channel
Yeah, there we
for
go.
members only.
Members only. Have you guys been playing anything good other than Silent Hill 2 Remake?
I have been playing two different things actually. So I've talked to you guys a bit about this already. There is a new game that dropped earlier this week that actually no one is talking about called Off the Grid. And there's a couple of reasons nobody's talking about it. Number one,
Because it's the
is
name of
that
a Kanye song.
It is. That song is actually not that bad.
That's a
but
great
no,
song. That's a banger.
that
fucking
is a great song.
It's a great song.
But no, it's because it's on the Epic Games launcher.
Mm.
Yeah, and nobody even knows what that is, but it's free. It's on the Epic Games launcher, and it's like an edgy battle royale. It's just a battle royale, but it's like really edgy. Like the premise of the game is everybody who plays in the battle royale in the game, like in game, has their arms and their legs chopped off and replaced with like mechanical cybernetic limbs. But you swap your cybernetic limbs throughout each match because each cybernetic limb does something different. So you drop and you just have like stock cyber limbs, and then as you're like exploring and like looting, you can find some like certain arms that'll like shoot rockets, certain legs that'll let you like fly, certain legs that'll let you run really
Holy
fast.
shit.
Yes, so your these cybernetic limbs that you can replace throughout the battle royale do different things that affect gameplay, and like that's the whole pitch. Is you swap your limbs as you play through this like gruff militaristic like war zone. But it's pretty cool. It's fun. It's optimized like shit. Like I have a 3080 and I have to drop my settings to the lowest just to get a steady at 30 FPS. So it's in early access right now. If they don't fix that, that game is not going to work because people do not want to play on a game that looks like dog shit and still not get 30 FPS consistently. They just don't. But it's really cool. And of course, the other thing I've been playing is Dragon Ball Sparking Zero.
Yeah.
Which is great. Super good.
I have played like 0 of those Dragon Ball fighting games. Is it different or
no? Actually, it's
just
kind
better?
of it's the fourth in a series actually.
Okay.
Did you ever hear of the Budokai Tenkaichi games?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are only called that in America. Their Japanese name is Sparking. So the original, they changed it in the US because the Budokai trilogy is completely different. Dragon Ball Z Budokai 1, 2, and 3, they have different developers. They're 2D fighting games. They have nothing in relation to Budokai Tenkaichi. Whenever they localized it, they wanted to market the first game, which was called Dragon Ball Z Sparking, as if it was like the next in the Budokai series, even though it wasn't. So they made that up. So it's actually Sparking Neo, which is Budokai Tenkaichi 2, and then Sparking Meteor, which is Tenkaichi 3. So they just didn't do that for this. This would be Budokai Tenkaichi 4, but they just didn't feel like they needed to localize it. So now this is Sparking Zero.
Okay.
And it plays just like the first 3 in the trilogy, which is great because those are universally loved. But it's not a typical fight. It's not like a 2D fighting game. It's a 3D. It's more like a Dragon Ball simulator than it is a fighting game per se. Like destructible environments, 3D, you're flying up and down. But yeah, it's super good. It's probably the best Dragon Ball Z game I've ever played, and I played 13 this year alone.
That's right, because you covered them. Yeah,
I didn't realize it was
them all.
that many. Holy fuck.
I played 9 for the PS2, 3 for the PS1, and I've played 2 for the GBA so far.
I guess I probably played that many Tony Hawk games.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, damn. All right.
And this is by far the best one of all of them that I've played.
Yeah, people seem to love it online.
Yeah.
So yeah, very good. If you're a Dragon Ball fan, you can't skip it. You just can't. This is the peak. This is the epitome of what the series is capable of being, in my opinion.
Hell yeah. What about you, Avalanche?
I've been playing a lot of Stalker.
I don't know have I ever asked you this? Do you prefer Avalanche or Jared?
Jared's good, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, either way, it's totally fine. There's a lot of people who, even though I start my videos with like I'm Jared from Avalanche Reviews, the channel name is Avalanche Reviews, and that's all that people really associate.
Yeah.
So I get called either or, and it's totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of
Stalker.
Stalker
2 yet? Do you believe now
that
it
exists?
So I played it. Yeah, I played it at Tokyo Game Show, and I talked to a few of its developers, and it was super fun. I'm still convinced it's never coming out.
Okay, so you're
no
still
way.
convinced it's never coming up, but you've
There's
played
no
it.
way, dude. Yeah, I played it, and it's a finished, like, playing it. It's not like a broken, unfinished mess or anything. Which, to be fair, when Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl first came out, that's what it was. Coming from someone who played it at launch, but still, I just like I can't be hurt again by these guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I've been playing the console ports. I think it's Legends of the Zone on console, and I never did a video on them, and I feel like I should because I love covering like console ports and stuff like that, and they're honestly incredible on the Series X. They play 60 FPS. It is Stalker basically with all the graphics turned up. It shouldn't work. There's no way that this should be happening, but it works so perfectly. It's kind of insane. My only complaint is on PS5. The third game has really bad audio lag, which is like you'll fire the gun and then see the muzzle flash, and then like a second later, the sound of the gun firing happens.
Damn.
Which is strange, but doesn't do it on Xbox Series X, so whatever. But
That's odd.
they're kind of incredible.
Hell yeah. I still haven't gotten into Stalker yet. I was planning on doing a video at one point on the first game, and I started playing it, but I think I got caught up in some other stuff.
Yeah, those are some big games to take on.
I really liked it though. It was cool.
I mean, as far as atmosphere goes, you still to this day can't beat Stalker. It's just incredible for the world that it puts you in and how much effort it goes into trying to keep you there. But they're not like Stalker will fight you the entire, like every moment that you're playing the video game, you're having to play against the game itself because it's so unintuitive and there's so many like keyboard commands that you're not taught in game. Like just the idea that people won't want to talk to you if your gun isn't holstered is a wild idea. I don't think they do that in video games that I can remember.
Yeah.
So just walking up to a guy and trying to ask him about a quest, and he keeps pushing you away and eventually shoots you. As like someone who's like new to the game, I'd be like, what? I watched a developer interview when the game was first being like worked on, and that was one of the features that they were really proud of. So I knew about it going in, but if I wouldn't have seen that, I wouldn't intuit like, oh, I'll just put my gun away.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that not to that extent, but I feel like games used to do those kinds of things far more often. And yeah, I feel we just like get away from that now because in service of, I mean, it's harder to sell that kind of shit to your average person.
Well, yeah, immersive sims used to be a lot more of a popular idea.
Yeah.
And they have become, I actually don't think that immersive sims have become any less popular. I just think that the market for immersive sims was already close to maxed out from the start.
Yeah.
And the market for other genres has just continued to grow and grow and grow. And most developers just don't really want to pursue the fan base for immersive sims, despite the fact that it's still probably the same size, if not a little bit bigger than it always was.
Yeah. That's true. I played Corpus Edax recently, which was a indie immersive sim that was really good.
That seems to be where the genre has moved towards the indie sector.
Yeah, there's actually
they're the only ones who are willing to do it.
Yeah, there's a ton of them out. Yeah, I think, I mean, that's just kind of across the board, like games moving to indies. Did you ever watch the Stalker movie?
The one that like Wendigoon was a part of?
No, not based on the game. It was based on the original book.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
It's why, so I didn't know this, but apparently like cinema heads are all about that movie. I had only found out about its existence because I love Stalker so much and Roadside Picnic. But after I watched it, I found out that that's like one of those like Criterion style, like people love that shit, which is cool.
Yeah, it's I knew about that. I knew about the movie far before I knew about the game. And I didn't think they had anything to do with, like, I didn't think they were adapted from the same source material. The director is like an amazing director. He directed another movie that was an adaptation of a Russian book called Polaris that was really good as well.
Cool.
Yeah, he's super good. But it's also one of those things where like I had to try and watch Polaris 3 times because I fell asleep the first 2 times.
Yeah,
Like,
Stalker's
it's really
like
good.
4 hours or something.
Yeah, it's really good technically, but like it's pretty boring.
That's a tough sit through. Especially it's really slow past the intro for sure.
Yes. Yeah. I tried to show my girlfriend that movie one time and we got maybe like an hour in and then we just stopped watching because I was like, I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, that's a tough movie to bring to somebody for sure.
Yeah. I was like, never mind. Yeah, not Polaris, Solaris. Yeah, you're right. I have the book right behind me somewhere. I started playing Metaphor this morning. It just came out today.
Oh, nice.
I know you were hyped for that one.
That was probably the game I was most excited for this year. And it's great so far. It's fucking awesome. If you like Persona, Shin Megami Tensei Atlas games, it's just that, but in a fantasy world and infinitely like they've just refined the formula at this point, like so down to the details where they're just changing little things, but it just makes the whole sum gel so much better. Yeah, it's fucking great.
Nice. I got to say that game is certainly a part of a trend that I hate seeing of games just being terribly optimized.
Is it?
Yeah, it's a super inconsistent frame rate, but I think people found out it's because the game world is always rendering 3D characters in front of you, even if you can't see them. So if you're like looking at a wall, you still get frame rate dips because it's loading in either like AI or like graphical assets for all the characters in front of you.
Damn. Why is that even a thing? Is it just because I feel like I see a lot of those things talked about with modern games, just like super inefficiencies. Is it just because like we have the capability to do it now? Like the technology is so much greater than it used to be that we don't have to take these little shortcuts.
I have a different theory. I think that it's used to the people who were building games were super proficient in like coding the engine and creating the engine, or at the very least altering the engine. But a lot of people who are building games now, even AAA games, are mainly just using an engine that wasn't made by them. And so they probably don't even think to go in and put that kind of optimization in, or even if they wanted to, they might not even know how or where to begin. Because I don't think Unreal has a blueprint function to just do that. I think you see what I'm saying? You can't just go into Blueprint and do that. I think you actually have to know how to fucking like code that into the engine. And I think most dev teams just don't know how to do that. They might not even know it's a thing.
Yeah, I don't think that the developers of Metaphor are using fucking Blueprint, but
but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
In terms of like Silent Hill 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
Which also has
Silent Hill
problem.
2 is also graphically inefficient, but it's just it's an overall trend, and I think it stems from a few different factors, but mostly I believe display tech has far dwarfed like graphics tech. So 4K is I have a 4090 running right next to me, and Silent Hill 2 I can't run at native 4K with ray tracing without like something in the neighborhood of like 35 FPS, which is just unacceptable for you know what I mean, like because 4K like that card was specifically on top of being the best consumer graphics card that you can get your hands on. It's supposed to deal with 4K specifically, and things like Alan Wake, on medium to high settings on native 4K is like sitting around like 50 FPS on average. I think display technology and resolution boundaries have evolved far faster than the hardware has. And I would imagine years and years ago, there was that earthquake and tsunami in Taiwan. And I think it took out a lot of like silicon factories, and I think it might have set the entire world technologically back really far, because for a long period of time people weren't progressing because they couldn't get like semiconductors and stuff on hand. So I think we haven't developed the graphics hardware to live up to the resolutions our displays can get to. And the same thing goes with consoles. People want 4K because they have 4K TVs, and I mean, just flat out 4K is not a tenable resolution for video games right now. Like, no matter what you're doing, unless you want to achieve resolution at the cost of like graphical fidelity, which seems like, why would you know what I mean? Just at that point, play at 1440p or something.
Yeah.
But games want to be internally upscaled to 4K, and they want to run at like 960p or something. So you get a lot of issues where the console's working really hard to get to 4K and not quite so hard on everything else. And then you just have a really inefficient mess.
Yeah. It is, it's interesting. I forgot that Alan Wake 2 ran so shit on the PC. What is it with survival horror developers? Just fucking,
I mean, to be fair,
games, pal.
They look great, so it's like no complaints on that end of things, but it's just, I think also the problem is games are being optimized for console hardware more than ever now, because consoles are at a point now where they can like effectively, in some ways, compete with like a really good gaming PC in terms of functionality, and they have a pretty unified architecture as well. So I think video game developers are probably optimizing for that experience, and they're not leaving a lot of headway in terms of what could be gained with more hardware, with more horsepower being thrown at it. So you have a sort of theoretical limit at where things can be. And, if you have a $6,000 computer, the amount of performance you can get over console is not quite so noticeable, I would say, in terms of like visuals.
I had better be able to fucking run Jedi Power Battles at 4K native, constant 140 frames per second, never below.
I think that might be achievable.
Maybe, just maybe. Can we before we talk about Silent Hill 2 Remake, can we talk about? I thought that they announced that Jedi Power Battles was getting a remaster, and I know I'm not as tuned into like the Star Wars world, but like, was that a game that people were fucking begging for?
No. That game wasn't even liked very much on release. It released on the PlayStation, and it was so fucking like unfinished. It wasn't until it released on the Dreamcast like 6 months later or like 3 months later or something that people were like, oh, this actually plays well. But the PlayStation port was really bad, and most people didn't fucking like it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if anything, I actually just did a whole like 20 something minute section on that game for my Star Wars PS1 video. So I'm very familiar with it now. Nice. But if anything, I'm looking forward to a version of it that's hopefully good, because as I was playing it, for that video, I was like, dude, this could be really fun, because it has all the makings of a fun little like Star Wars arcade game. It's co-op. It looks like it'd be fun if it wasn't so fucking bad. I could just tell that with like 2 more months of development, all of the problems could have been fixed. So I hope that this is going to be more. Yeah. If they use the Dreamcast version and not the PS1 version, they'll probably be in the clear, but no, nobody wanted that. It was probably wouldn't even be top 10 Star Wars games that people want now to be ported.
Well, here's a sidebar. Let me hijack this for a second. How do you guys feel about like remasters being the big thing right now?
I think it's a natural evolution of the industry, and I'm fine with it, actually.
Yeah.
I think it's better than remakes being like, I'm always, I think my like pyramid of things is always like, just port the game. And then if you can't do that, remaster it. And then if you really fucking can't do that, then remake it, last worst case scenario, remake it. But so I guess it's better than remakes. I don't want to see remakes of everything forever. But
I think some games need remakes. I think most games don't.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, there's the odd case, but I think it's I think remasters are easy you know, easy money, I guess, especially for a game that has a good fan base, maybe online or something like not Silent Hill, fucking Legacy of Kain, the Soul Reaver remasters that just got announced. Let's fucking go. But like those games needed something at least, because Soul Reaver wasn't even available on PC anymore. They took the PC port down forever ago because it was so bad. It was terrible. And like it needed something. So I'm okay with that. But Jedi Power Battles, I guess if somebody's going to buy
it. That's not a remaster. That's
not
actually just a port though.
Oh,
they're not even calling it a remaster.
Oh, I thought they were.
Yeah, that's the thing. Maybe they were and I missed that, but when I was looking at it, they're not even calling it a remaster. It's just they're actually just porting it to modern consoles and like touching up the graphics.
Huh. I thought it was called Jedi Power Battles Remastered.
Was it? I don't think so. Let me go look at the announcement. I could be totally wrong. Maybe they might be calling it a remaster, but
yeah.
They're calling it the enhanced edition.
Enhanced edition. Okay. What the?
Yeah, they're not calling it a remaster, and it's fucking not. It's just, and they're only calling it that like in subtext. There's no titles or anything. It's literally just called Jedi Power Battles. So.
Yeah. Why? How do you feel about it? Remasters.
I'm fairly positive, honestly. I think it's a win-win because I don't think it takes away from development on new games, and you know, there's an argument that like they're flooding the market in a sense, but in terms of like for our archival purposes, to have games that will run on semi-modern hardware that represent a pretty accurate idea of what that game was like on launch or something, it's totally cool. And they're remastering Lunar, Suikoden, and Devil Summoner.
Yeah,
which like I never thought I'd live in that kind of world, but I have no issues with that whatsoever. I'm really positive.
Wait, did they announce
honestly on remakes as well?
Did they announce the Devil Summoner remaster and I missed it?
I saw that there's like people were saying on Twitter that was going to be it, like it was a leak maybe or something.
It was the achievements for something else, like Persona 3 Golden maybe, I think. Yeah, that is.
I would love to see that. That is a slept on series right there. It is so good.
Yes, very good. One of the series that I'm surprised wasn't bigger in the Atlas Shin Megami Tensei world catalog thing. I think it's good. I think especially the coolest thing is with things like Tomb Raider remaster, Soul Reaver remaster, having the ability to switch between old and new graphics, adding in new little quality of life features, giving you the ability to turn them on and off and stuff like that. I think that's always cool because, you know, if you're the developer and you decide I want to make a change or I want to do this, it gives you the freedom to do that as a creative, but it also gives the audience the freedom to engage or not engage with that change. Which is just like best case scenario for all parties involved.
Yeah,
agreed.
We definitely have some remasters that are handling it a lot better, because the Bounty Hunter remaster from Aspyr was great, but that Dead Rising remaster is just worse. It's just worse. No, I think it's got like almost overwhelmingly negative reviews on Steam or something.
Really?
Does it really?
I might not. I actually could be wrong on that. It might have positive reviews. Let me double check myself. But I know,
so people aren't liking it. That's wild.
It has positive. Why would you do that? You hyped me up because I was like, ooh, worst. I was like, ooh, worst Steam games. Positive. Let's go.
Well, I had a negative impression of it probably. I think somebody told me, they may have said that they think it was going to end up with that as well.
Okay.
But the thing is, I'm a Dead Rising fan. I like the Dead Rising games, and everybody I've seen who I know that likes the Dead Rising games has played it and said, dude, do not buy this. It's really bad. And the original Dead Rising is on Steam. It's a great game. It didn't need a remaster. The only thing you could have done is improve the graphics, but they didn't do that. They changed a bunch of shit in the game, and then they added things that shouldn't have been there, and then they removed a couple of features that added to the charm of the game.
It's basically a remake at that point, right?
Yeah, but it's not. It's worse, and you don't have any of the gameplay. Like the smoother gameplay. It still plays like an old game, but it doesn't look like an old game, and it kind of gives you some like uncanny valley feeling.
That is an opinion that I've heard.
You see, if you're gonna do that, don't fucking bother. You know, Either port it with touch-ups or remake it from the ground up, and you can make it do whatever you want to do. But this weird, it has new graphics with old gameplay. It doesn't look good.
I think it's probably like, it's not good, obviously, that, you know, they did that or whatever, but I think because the original is so available, I literally have no problem with it. If the original is available, do whatever you want. I don't give a shit. And Dead Rising, you can buy on Steam for $10. So
fair enough. That's true. And you probably should. You probably just shouldn't even bother with the remaster because you're going to be playing a version of the game with pieces of the original removed. Yeah. You don't. It's not. I'm not talking about like a model or two. There's there's like a gameplay mechanic that's been removed.
Damn.
Oh,
that's rough.
So just don't do that.
Well, I was all excited to play. You fucked me over here.
Are you a big fan of the original?
I was when it came out. I played the PC, the Steam port when it came out as well, and that had been the first time that I'd touched Dead Rising 1 since, you know, the Xbox 360 about a year after it launched. And I spent a butt ton of time with it when it was out first. I really enjoyed my time with it, but playing it as like from a modern standpoint, there was a lot of stuff that didn't age quite so well. But I was interested in like forcing myself to go back through it and using the deluxe remaster as a bit of a motivator.
A big part of the problem is that gameplay wise, like mechanically, a lot of the stuff that didn't age so well is still there in the remaster. So it's like,
what was the point?
It still feels the same to play.
Yeah.
All right. Should we talk about Silent Hill 2?
I've been itching to.
It's weird because I remember me and you, Jared, did a stream when that reveal trailer came out.
Yeah,
They had that transmission. Yeah, and we did we broke down the trailer and stuff. So now it's all full circle. We're back here. The game is out. So you said you haven't finished it yet?
No, I'm in the middle of Brookhaven right now.
Okay. And Evan, you have not played it.
I've been watching a lot of footage of it. I've talked to a couple of people who have played it, but no, I have not played it yet.
Okay.
I want to. I probably will. I'll probably do like a little video on it in December or something.
I've played it twice. I played it once on PC. I streamed it on PC, and then the PC version's terrible. It's dog shit. I don't know if any of the fixes work. Because I know there's like a bunch of people that have been working to fix the game and stuff, but the PC version sucked. I played it again on PS5, beat it on PS5, and I'm on my New Game Plus playthrough right now. I guess how did you from what you've seen so far, what's your thoughts?
My thoughts are his.
Jared's. I mean, your thoughts too. You're
Jared, you've actually played it.
I was very negative on it starting off because new Silent Hill game, you know, non-Team Silent, like Western developer, which we've seen happen in the past. And while there are like, you know, sort of hidden, I don't even want to say hidden gems in the modern-ish Silent Hill games, like Homecoming, you know, it was fun. It wasn't a good Silent Hill game, but, you know, as a horror game, it was all right. And Silent Hill Shattered Memories was amazing. Bad Silent Hill game, but a really fun, like, sort of like almost adventure game in a way, like mystery solving kind of deal.
Yeah.
So there's like good stuff that happened in the series, but it wasn't good for the franchise. It was just in video game terms. So I was like immediately, this is a bad idea. And I knew that Silent Hill 2 fans weren't going to, because that's a game that like people fuck with heavy. And it feels like that was a terrible idea to take on this project. But having played it, it's kind of amazing in a lot of ways. And I do have issues with it, but I think most of my problems so far just are of a technical nature and have nothing to do with like the content of the video game itself and how it plays.
Okay. Yeah, I think I want to start this off positive. I want to start things off positive because I was negative too. And I will say, I think my expectation was that this was going to be a lot worse. I don't think I liked it as much as everyone else did, but it's certainly not even close to as bad as I expected it to be.
Yeah.
So I think that's a win. And I do think it's a good video game. It is a good video game, which is not, I haven't been able to say that about all of the Bloober games I've played. I don't know. They've maybe made one good video game. But it's so strange because there are so many things that I want to be like, I don't like this change, but I don't know if it fucking matters. You know what I mean? That's what I've been grappling with for like the past week is I'm like, okay, I don't like this, but I can't find a reason. So I don't really think it matters. And
are we talking about from like a lore perspective, like the feel of Silent Hill 2 or like gameplay or what?
That's one of the things. So which boss fights have you done so far?
So far, I've only done Pyramid Head. I think I'm close to where Laura locks me in the room with the
flesh lip.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the boss fights are really good for the most part. But I was talking about this before we went live, and I was saying that I think I think that most of the changes that they made, where there were big changes, aren't necessarily like better or worse. They just come out to neutral. And I think it comes down to like whether you prefer the change or the unchanged version, it's not like objectively worse or objectively better. Because the boss fights, I think, like at least outside of the OG Pyramid Head boss fight and the Pyramid Head duo boss fight, like most of them are now kind of dynamic fights where you especially the Abstract Daddy boss fight. That one's like a dynamic fight. You run through an area. They're no longer these, claustrophobic fucking cube. You're just like circling around a room thing, which I think is better from a gameplay perspective and sometimes a storytelling perspective. But I think you lose something in that of the claustrophobia, right? Like you lose that a certain element of horror that's in there. Inherently. And I think that's, like I said, I think that's the story with everything. It's you lose one thing and you gain another. You gain a more effective game, but you lose maybe some style or some substance a little bit. That's kind of how I feel about a lot of the stuff. I think, so I wrote down a quote from Gene Park. Gene Park wrote an article in the Washington Post about the remake. And I thought it was really, it kind of encapsulated how I feel about it. He said, he was talking specifically about the, when you first walk into the Pyramid Head, the first time you fight him, he's, in the OG game, he's fucking with the legs, he's like doing some shit with the legs, to be debated, whatever he's doing with the legs. But he says, an unsettling depiction of monstrous sexuality tucked away in a small apartment stairwell is removed. In the original, James would be horrified, trapped in the hell of being witness to a crime he can't even comprehend. Instead, the remake offers a proper boss arena for the first big fight of the game. It becomes a good section of a video game and removes a small part of what made the original Silent Hill 2 so groundbreaking. And I think that's kind of the theme, right? Removing things to make Silent Hill 2 a better video game. But to me, Silent Hill 2 doesn't work as well as a better video game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can feel where you're getting at because I mean it makes a lot of sense. Now I'm in a very unique position to where Silent Hill 2 for me was always like a good video game and a good story,
Hmm.
but it I don't have that like love for it that a lot of people do. I mean, Silent Hill 2 is like the only game in the series for most people.
Yeah.
Like most people, I would imagine most people who love Silent Hill 2 haven't played, one other Silent Hill game that was released in the
Hell, half of them haven't even played Silent Hill 2.
That's fair. Yeah.
he said it. I just nodded in agreement to it. I think so. It's the Earthbound of survival horror for sure.
Yes.
And
But now they have.
because because of that, I'm not quite so hard on a lot of the story changes and line delivery and things that kind of affect it, but I think that you are right in the sense that you do lose a bit of the raw, unfiltered nature of Silent Hill 2 by improving it as a video game, because part of it, but like if you take an album that had a raw, dirty sound and you remastered it, you would kind of lose a bit of the spirit of that original pressing. Yeah, I think there's probably some merit to that for sure.
Like the original Silent Hill, especially like the first two games, almost even more the first game, feels kind of punk in a way. Even the story of who was it? Was it Sato that did the CG?
Takeyoshi Sato, yeah.
Like the story of him being under his desk and shit, like it feels kind of punk. And I think that when you take that and you distill it into what is the most effective video game for, a current day audience, it kind of, for me, loses some of that. Now, this is all with the caveat that I'm the only fucking person that's saying this right now. Like, I don't think anybody else has a problem with it, and I think everybody else loves it. I almost feel a little insane. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's a thing.
It's weird that you actually use the music comparison, because there is the phenomenon you're describing is actually super common in the music world, where the thing that a lot of people like about like classic punk, is that the songs themselves are very underproduced. They're very raw. Sometimes you'll be listening and the drums will get off time a little bit, and then they'll have to find their way back to the time. The guitars will have some mistakes even in the recording. They'll kind of bend the note wrong. It's very raw. It's very unproduced. And that is the appeal to a lot of people who like punk. And then you have, being into metal, like Jared and I are, there's a lot of metal bands who are heavy and grungy and beat down, and they're unproduced. But then there's some metal that is so produced that you can't even tell where the player ends and the computer begins, because every riff is quantized to be perfectly timed. The drums clearly weren't played by a real person. They were programmed in. And there is a phenomenon of people who like music less the better produced it is. And you just you're giving me that with Silent Hill 2. It lost something in its post-production, I think, is what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that goes across, even it moves into the story as well, because there are certain lines and certain deliveries that were very stilted about the original that, I mean, you can't argue that the voice acting is of a higher quality here in the remake, but when you change the intonation of a delivery, or just like, for example, when you first meet Angela and she says, "I'm not crazy," it's less aggressive and more less accusatory on Angela's end.
Yeah.
And James is more understanding. He's like, no, it's not that. And then you could see, and it's really good. I like the facial animations a lot, but you can see realization come over his face as he says this, and he realizes it for the first time. He's like, I guess I really don't care, with that kind of delivery.
Yeah.
And it's a little more, I've just realized this concept, whereas James in the original, it just seems like, yeah, I guess I really don't care. Like, I already knew this. This is something I was aware that I was going into. It's very different, and I would argue from a quality standpoint, it's better. You know, you have better voice actors who have much more talent in terms of delivering a very believable performance, but you do lose that raw, the sort of dream logic, like dream logic aura atmosphere of cutscenes in Silent Hill 2 and the OG. Like it's very hard to reproduce that. And if you go at it with an idea like, oh, I'm going to increase the quality here, you necessarily are going to get rid of a bit of what makes it unique and what might have made it resonate with people a little more.
Yeah, I think I do. I understand the argument that like it's hard to reproduce that, but I don't think you had to do it fully. I think most of the characters in the game are not trying to do that at all. They're not trying to ham it up or trying to be like a little bit over the top or Lynchian or anything. But Eddie does a very fucking good job at playing both sides. Eddie, I think, is the only one that is like capturing some of the essence of the original and also delivering a grounded performance. So I kind of wish it was it was more of like a meeting in the middle. I think a lot of the characters are just, no, we're just going grounded. The perfect example is is in the graveyard when Angela says lost, you know, like in the OG, she's like lost. And she like turns,
she just like can't
head,
comprehend that James could ever be lost.
and her face is like contorting. And she's like, what the fuck? And then in the remake, she's just like lost. Like, what are you talking about? You know? And it's like, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know. I think, but the thing is, there are things in this game they do better than Silent Hill 2, like the OG Silent Hill 2. At the end, after you watch the tape, there's a sequence where you walk through the crumbling hotel, and there's just this beautiful track going on in the background. When we first watched the or I don't know, maybe this wasn't on the, yeah, I think this was on the stream that we did when we first watched the hospital, and there was like sun peeking in the windows. I was like, that's so stupid. And then there's this, you know, you're walking through the hotel and it's like sunset, and there's just this sun coming down everywhere, and the hotel's like crumbling around you, and there's no monsters around, and it's just so fucking melancholic and like just giving you this very specific feeling. It's so beautiful. And that's one of the sequences where I was like, this specifically is infinitely better than the OG. So I don't know. I'm so conflicted on it. I have not stopped feeling conflicted. There's a day where I'll be like, you know what? It's better. It's great. And then there's a day where I'll be like, this fucking sucks. I fucking hate this thing.
Then truly they have done their job.
I think they specifically made this game to break my brain. I think that's what they did. I think this was a targeted attack to me.
You know what I think they did? I think they perfectly recreated the exact circumstances of Resident Evil 2 Remake's release, because this is a game that does not replace the original, because it offers a very different experience. But in terms of staying true to the spirit of the original while releasing a modern video game, it's like, I don't think you could have done better than, as far as executing a modern day video game using the blueprints of Silent Hill 2. I don't think you could have stayed truer to it while still producing something that somebody who's going to play the new God of War games or Assassin's Creed exclusively would play. It's a very different experience, and I don't think it replaces or even competes with the original, because it's so wildly like an alternate like take on Silent Hill 2. But as a fan of Silent Hill 2, and I've beaten it easily more than 10 to 12 times, I still feel the spirit of Silent Hill 2 inside of it. And it's like everything that they do feels like a genuine and honest effort to improve on things versus here's the problem with Silent Hill releases is everybody has their own interpretation of the series. And the series does inspire interpretation, but also there are concrete things within the game, a series of events that have taken place that you can find when you play the game and are very thorough and you kind of look into things and read every document. And a lot of people who have touched the Silent Hill series have thought, well, the only thing that matters is my interpretation. Therefore, the game that I'm going to create is going to be my Silent Hill. And this very much feels like Team Silent Hill just being updated. And I think it makes it a very different video game, but I don't think you could have been more accurate and made a more playable video game.
I think that's a good take.
Yeah, I think that's
actually
fair.
I have two kind of subjective questions for both of you regarding the remake, actually, that relates to some discourse I've seen on the game. The first of which is the combat.
Is it
of Silent Hill
woke?
2.
Is it woke?
Oh no, we're getting there. No.
Hell
The combat. So I've actually seen more discourse than I was expecting, and I was expecting it, but I've seen more than I was expecting of people saying the combat is a fundamental misunderstanding of what makes Silent Hill 2 what it was. They're saying this game should not have combat like this. This combat is bad. It shouldn't have combat at all. This makes James feel like a video game superhero or something like that. Like, I have seen sentiments that the combat should not have been like this, that it should have been like harder and like jankier, and it should not, like, one sentiment is James should not be able to sidestep or dodge. You should just like take the hit and then hit back like the original. And what are your thoughts on that after actually putting some hours into the game?
I can see where I get it. I understand it. But I think if that is a problem, then they should have because the whole argument, right, for any of these changes is that they did it to access a wider audience or a modern audience. And that's okay. And you would alienate people if you just like purposefully made your combat, you know, I guess less modern. And I think that's probably the same argument for why a lot of the line delivery is not there as well, is because you would alienate people. So I think if you're going to say that about the combat, you have to say that about the style. I don't really agree with it about the combat because it's just the combat in Silent Hill 2, like the OG Silent Hill 2, was not good. Like, it wasn't great. It was never great. It was never like, this is the best.
Was it bad
combat
by design? Do you think
No.
Team Silent like made it and it was better, and they're like, no, we got to make it worse to really? So
No.
yeah, if that's
No.
not the case, then Bloober saying we have to make sure this combat isn't good would be going against the spirit of Team Silent's original intentions. Isn't that fair to say?
I also don't think the combat in Silent Hill 2 Remake is very good. I think it's okay, but it's better than the OG. But I think it is like kind of annoying
Spotty.
sometimes. Yeah, it's the way I was describing it to a friend was it's in a lot of games where you have maybe a difficult to interface with combat system, you'll get to a point where you go, oh, it clicks. That's how you'll describe a combat system. You'll say at a certain point it just clicks, and then like you feel like you have full agency over the combat. This game feels like it clicks and then it unclicks, and then it clicks and then it unclicks, and you're like, what am I not getting here?
I'm experiencing that right now with the nurses. I'm having to learn how to fight them, and it feels really good having to fight them. But it also feels like the combat, almost like Callisto Protocol, was optimized for one-on-one, one enemy in the room against you.
Yep.
And if anything other than that scenario takes place, you are taking unnecessary damage that you couldn't have even prepared for, because the camera movement during combat you go to take a swing, the camera swoops in with you,
Yeah.
and your field of view is like effectively non-existent when you're fighting one enemy. The way the combat is introduced, at first you're going to get your ass kicked until you figure out how the iframes work with the dodge. Once you figure out you can like dodge cancel the last few frames of an attack,
Yeah.
and that you stay relatively invincible even though an attack might physically connect, as long as you're in the state of dodging, you're set. And once you figure that out, you're like, this is like, it feels great against a single enemy,
Mhm.
because when you first start the game, you're only coming up against like one enemy at a time, one lying figure at a time. But as you start to encounter like multiple of them in the same area, like when that weird fog storm takes place in the very beginning of the game,
Yeah.
you're taking hits in that period, the end. Like there's no way someone's so good that they get out of that without taking undue damage, for sure.
Yeah, and it's like yeah, like it and the nurses are fucking tanks too. They
are. They take a
fucking-
lot of hits.
Holy shit. I do
Even
think,
though you get a new weapon before fighting them, but it doesn't feel any better because you're having to hit them like 9-10 times easy.
the pipe only feels better when you go back to your second playthrough and you get the plank and then you start beating on lying figures and you're like, holy shit, this took 6 hits to kill. Damn. Yeah, it's so I don't think the combat system is like the best, but it's better than OG Silent Hill. Like it's an upgrade, definitely. But yeah, it can be frustrating at some points. I think you're right about the one-on-one thing, because it works amazing with bosses. There was a point in the game on my second playthrough where I was like, I'm not going to use ammo on this boss. I'm just going to fight it with my fucking pipe. And it was kind of fun. It was kind of fun, like, dodging every attack and just like wailing on it with my pipe and trying to see its attacks come at me rather than just standing there with a shotgun. So it is like good when it's one-on-one, but yeah, if you get trapped in a hallway with 2 or 3 enemies, you're fucked. You're getting hit hard using some syringes.
For sure. But I do have to say, it is a very common misconception that combat in survival horror games in general, but specifically with Silent Hill, it was an intentional, we wanted to make the game more scary or increase the atmosphere or give you the idea that this is just a regular person. Like in Silent Hill 1, you can miss shots that are on target, and that was an intentional mechanic to make it feel like Harry was handling a weapon as somebody who doesn't have training in it. And I thought that was actually a good move, especially for a game that gives you as much ammo as Silent Hill 1 does. But combat in Silent Hill 2 worked the way it did because it was based off of survival horror. You hold a trigger button, you press another button to like activate that attack. They were actually really innovative in allowing you to move while holding down a shoulder button, which we hadn't seen in Resident Evil yet. But the fact of the matter is, when survival horror started as a genre, tank controls and the combat was essentially set in stone because they were effectively copying like Alone in the Dark. So they just had blueprints that they were working from. And Silent Hill 2's combat, as coming from somebody who enjoys survival horror combat and Silent Hill 2's combat specifically, it's a game of spacing and resource management versus hitting the right button at the right time. But to say that it was like intentionally made that way, I think is giving a lot of credit to Team Silent. That like Team Silent deserves a lot of credit for a lot of things they've done, but they just made survival horror combat in their games. And it was not like this wild, like incredible development move to hold R trigger and hit X to attack. That was not something that they did to like increase the atmosphere of the game. And I think it's a lot of cope coming from people.
Definitely. I agree.
Okay.
What was
I
your
actually
other
have a
subjective question?
Yeah, that was this is a question I actually want to take with I want to hear some nuance from both of you with an attempt to rationalize why both sides would think what they think. And I want to hear your opinions on it and what you think the development team was going for with some good faith. Okay. Maria's new design. What do you think?
What both sides of that argument would think?
I want to know I want to know your personal opinion, but with grace and good faith to what both sides feel about it.
You just talked to us like you expected us to come out fucking swinging or something. You're like, listen, guys, I don't want any blood here tonight. Okay.
Well, you know what? I might. Let me take this.
That was
first.
more for Jared, actually. Go ahead.
Okay, so to be completely charitable to both sides, they're all fucking idiots, and it's so annoying watching the discourse of this fucking video game. You know, not even about Maria, Angela. So you have two camps over here, and they're both just shitting in their pants stupid. You have like people who are like, Angela has this wide jawline, therefore woke, and this is the woke mind virus leaking into video games, which there are video games that have had female main characters made less physically attractive on purpose by developers, and you have to be fair by admitting that that's the case. We have to be 100% fair.
We have receipts of them saying they did it on purpose. I've seen them.
And without using the term woke directly, that was their intent from doing that. So, like, to give people their due credit, this is a thing that happens in video games. But here's the thing: we have other things that are going on. Like Angela's facial animations are not very good comparatively between, like, if we're taking James and Maria's cutscenes and then comparing them to Angela, the scene where you come across Angela in the graveyard, her mouth doesn't emote, it doesn't move very much. It makes her look almost like she's had a stroke recently when she speaks. Like she can't activate certain muscles in her face, and that comes from a lack of points of articulation. But then when you come across her in the big mirror room with the knife and that famous scene, she's laying on her side and her jaw is laying on her side with her. It's hanging down like Sylvester Stallone style. And I think that this is a genuine and honest issue with the way that real people are having their faces modeled into video games. It is much harder to model a female face because the sheer nature of feminine faces, there are less peaks and valleys. They're more round faces, versus a man will have much more predominant cheekbones and a jawline that's much easier to put into a video game and apply geometry to. That's happening, and I think it just comes from Angela is not as, if we're taking a percentage of the cutscenes of the video game, Angela is not present for a majority of them. And then once Maria is in the story, she's very much like a main focus. So they had to get her facial animations correct, her facial modeling much better. So it wasn't, I don't believe that this was a woke thing. Although I can understand people, because of, history in the industry, I can understand people immediately jumping to that conclusion. What I can't forgive is like jumping to that conclusion and then going on the internet and saying, as if it was the honest to God truth without any sort of looking into things. Like, for example, the Heaven's Night sign, where it has a woman with a really large stomach. And then everybody's like, oh, they've gone woke. And it's like, it was in the original.
Yeah.
Also, I think that's a perspective thing. That's not supposed to be your stomach. I looked at it. That's supposed to be like the perspective of how she's laying with her legs like that.
I would imagine that was probably the intent from the developers when it was in the original. Yeah. But they did recreate it faithfully in Team Bloomers. In their defense, that was
not
obviously
even the
not
Legacy
a
of Kain
thing.
statue situation. It's actually the same.
Yeah, it's literally just the exact same image.
Yeah.
So we have that side of the camp, which is annoying, but you can understand. It's like, listen, this is stuff that's happened in the industry before. People are just kind of assuming this is happening again. It's very annoying that it's so prominent. And then on the other side, you have people who are like, oh God, look at this guy. He's not able to fuck an abuse survivor. Like, yeah. That's not, you can find things. This is the issue, and this is the problem. These people are pretending as if they don't know that there's a difference between visually attractive and sexually attractive. Like, you can see a 14-year-old boy dressed to the nines, like with the dopest modern fashion. So that's visually attractive to look at. you're obviously not sexually attracted to that 14-year-old boy.
Yeah.
It's for a video game. The fog in Silent Hill is incredible. I've never thought about getting my dick anywhere near it. That's just personally me. So you have these two sides that are being, I would say, at some level disingenuous. I mean, but like, the brickwork in Silent Hill 2, not sexually attractive at all. Incredibly visually attractive from a composition and technological perspective.
Yeah.
But
we have these two camp. Oh, go ahead.
What I wanted to know about though was her outfit.
I think it's more sexy than the original. Her cleavage is much more on display in Remake than it ever was in the original, for sure.
But so you think the new design is actually more sexually not personally sexually testing, but overall you think it's trying to lean more into
definitely, especially because they got her a little more caked up. She's packing a little more heat in the trunk section, which it's being made by Westerners and not Japanese people. I can understand. I would say it was more personally, I don't have any evidence like I did with Angela that it was a mishap more than anything, or not an intentional inclusion. But Maria seems to me just like to want to update her fashion for more, like she's wearing a skin tight 90s era mini skirt, an entire like dress with it, and then the leather jacket. I think it looks dope as hell. It's like a cool looking jacket.
It is more original because her original outfit was just a Christina Aguilera costume.
Yeah,
but like they did, in the original she did show midriff, and there was that they had to move the tattoo, the iconic star tattoo, because of it.
Yeah.
But you think that's fine. You are in favor of the design change. You think it actually lends more to her character and does not subtract from it.
I don't think it does. I mean, she is still showing off an aspect of her body that both is and can be found very sexually attractive. Her cleavage it's working. She's got great hips as well. And, there's a lot of scenes from behind where I was able to tell, like, okay, they packed more polygons in the rear section than in the original. I think
not
it just
as many
comes
as Pyramid Head. They had their
priorities.
priorities.
The geometry. No. That was another thing too, because a 3D animator was like, oh, look at the geometry of Pyramid Head's model. And then, some guy was like, I can't believe these idiots. You got to trust the experts. They know what they're doing. It's like, no, you can criticize somebody's work, especially a video game. All three of us make a living doing it, you know?
We should all stop and really let the experts
handle
this kind of stuff.
Like if a video game comes out, it's got to be good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, somebody made it.
Yeah.
I gotta hear your favorite son now, Maria or Angela, whichever one. What do you think?
Okay, so we're specifically talking about like the de-sex attractification of
not
the
necessarily.
female characters in the game. What I think about that.
No, not necessarily.
Well, do you think that's what's going on?
Do I think?
That's what I'm saying. Because we don't know that's actually what's happening. I'm just asking what you think about their designs, and where do you stand on it in relation to where both of these psychotic extremes are coming from?
Pick a side. You have to.
You have to pick a side.
Surprisingly, I actually don't care about the Maria redesign that much. I do think it's probably just a modernization of outfits. Like cheetah print is worn today, but it's by like Zoomers who are like obsessed with Y2K culture.
Yeah.
So it's not fitting her character to wear cheetah print. I guess it's showing a little less skin. Again, like you said, maybe appealing to a Western audience more than an Eastern one. Angela, I don't think her character redesign is that bad, but I do think it changes how she comes off because her face is more round and less angular. I mean, an angular design, how if you look at, Angela's face in the OG, it's full of points. Everything's like a fucking jagged edge, it feels, and that's when we first meet her, kind of how she comes off. She's abrasive, she's like loud, and like you're like, what the fuck is going on with this person?
This does kind of make a staple where the side that's normally mad about angular jaws is mad Angela's jaw isn't angular enough.
Yeah, they're mad. Yeah, exactly.
They're mad it's too round.
So I do think that has like that has aesthetic effects on how you view a person when you meet them in this video game. But I don't think it's that large. I generally across the board think the character redesigns are actually pretty good. That's one of the things I don't really have a problem with. James looks fucking dopey in the original. He looks like
I think Eddie probably looks like the most, like as far as redesigns go, the most. This is like a person in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Like they included like a splotchy like rosacea points on his cheeks, which you see in people who are like morbidly obese. He looks way more like a fat guy than Eddie in the original. But I think I'm with, like, I just think the redesigns are, again, in the same spirit of RE2 Remake, in creating more realistic versions of these characters. You sort of have to change things necessarily, because with Angela's like very pointed face, I think that wouldn't look quite as natural in a video game attempting photorealism. Yeah. I don't think you necessarily had to make her jawline so wide, giving her a very chubby look, even though her body obviously is not, it's off-putting because she's not wearing a turtleneck in the original, and you can see how slim her neck is. And I imagine in Remake, if she wasn't wearing a turtleneck, the wider face would look more proportional to her body if we were able to see her neck. And, the eyes are kind of naturally drawn downwards, and it gives you a more slimming aesthetic. But I don't necessarily think that it detracts from the character, like you said. I think the redesigns are pretty, just here's what a version of this character would look like if you ran into them on the street in real life kind of approach to them.
Yeah. So overall, we're having positive. You two are both having positive feelings about the redesigns. Mostly, you're okay with how they did.
I fucking love the Eddie. I love everything about Eddie in this game. Like I would, honestly, all my problems would be fixed if every character was just like Eddie.
Just bug-eyed, like big cheeks,
crazy, and just
is
like
the pizza line in the game? I haven't seen that part.
It's
text, right? It's not actually spoken aloud.
No,
there's an homage.
Yeah, you have to go. You have to go.
Never mind. 2 out of 10. Don't buy.
Because the OG, it's not in the new scene is not in Pete's Bolorama. It's in the theater, and Eddie is eating ice cream, which I kind of think that's better. I kind of think it's more over the top and it's more overt. There were some changes that they made that were so overt. I was kind of like, I wonder if they're being too ham-fisted with it. Like, I really am curious, and maybe I should look up some people's videos or streams or something, but if people figured it out before they got to the hotel, like if people knew, but like Eddie, yeah, he's like fucking shoveling ice cream into his mouth from a
with his hand. He's not even using a spoon.
Like eating it off of his hand. And I thought that was probably better. It's more overt. It's more like kind of gross. It's more, it's
gluttonous.
Gluttonous. That's the word. Indulgent, but it's in, you can go to Pete's Bolorama optionally off to the side. You don't have to go there at all during the main game, but if you go there, there's a little pizza box and it's one of the glimpses of the past. And James says, I think he says, why would anybody be sitting here eating pizza or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you see that settles it for me. Before I was like, oh, maybe you could kind of play the second one, the remake of the second one. They're both kind of similar. No, they are two definitively different games now.
Yeah.
Because in the original, he says, how this town is full of monsters. How can you just sit there and eat pizza? And that's the whole game. Nothing else about that game really matters except that line. So these are two different games. And the remake is inferior, and you just should play the original, because without that line, it's nothing.
To play devil's advocate here, there are so many lines. So what I've been doing, I'm working on the Death Stranding video, but at the same time, I'm because I think that I might be the only person that's doing this right now, is going through both scripts and comparing like literally every single thing that they changed. And just to see, I'm just curious. I don't know. I don't even know if I'm going to do anything with this, but it's fun. And they've changed James to be so much more sympathetic. He's so much less accusatory when he talks to people in this one. And I would fucking love to interview the devs and just see why, like, what was their reasoning, you know? Because I just want to not like, why the fuck did you do this? But like, I'm curious. Like, I really want to know like what their intent was. I think maybe just to make James more of a character that you can get behind at the beginning stages of the game before you know, learn about him. But yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting choice, and it's not one that I hate or really care about that much, I think. Yeah. Oh, I heard your stomach growl.
They're two totally different games.
Okay, we should probably read some comments. I was gonna see how long we could let the silence sit in.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
Oh, we can still do that. We can do that right now. We can just
just a moment of silence for the lack of the pizza scene in its entirety.
It feels forced.
Okay. Of course, it's
yeah.
forced.
Now we
That's
can't
the
do it.
Okay. Do you guys want to? Well, here, wait. Actually, can you guys talk to the comments real quick, and I'll go to the.
We
bathroom.
sure can. All right, everybody. Now's your chance to ask Jared some questions. So quick, drop a Jared question in.
Yeah, now.
Now, I'm not asking. I'm not offering. It's a demand. Let's see. Whether it's changing his lines, changing his delivery, removing lines, James is for the most part depicted more sympathetic and likable. Hang on. Actually, Fred had a question for you earlier, Jared. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, had a question for Avalanche. Do you prefer Resident Evil 1 remake or original? And do you think a modern remake for Resident Evil 1 would be unnecessary?
As far as preference goes, I have a very annoying tendency. I don't have a preference because which one I want to play changes by the day. Sometimes I'll wake up and I'll be like, it's a Resident Evil 1 remake kind of day because the difficulty and the changes to routing are so different in RE1 remake that it's almost a totally different experience. They're almost two separate video games for me in my mind, despite being so like RE1 remake is so accurate and so good. But because of the changes to difficulty and stuff, I don't necessarily have a preference. It just depends on how I'm feeling. But I don't think a remake of RE1 remake would be unnecessary because, all right, so like I'm a collector, right? If I get like 3 PS2 games, I have to fill that entire shelf. In that same sense, they have remade REs 2 and 3 in a very deliberate style that I guess visually through like design, you can tell that they belong together in terms of how they were made and the look that they have. I would enjoy seeing that same approach to RE1. We already have a redesign for Jill. We could see a redesign for Chris, and like it would be really cool to see that. I guess necessary isn't the word because we already have 2 very complete, very well-made video games. But if they're doing remakes, it would be nice
to kind of have one that's more in the style of 2 and 3, so you can kind of like play through them together.
Yeah, if you were to play 1, 2, and 3 remake, they should feel very visually cohesive. And I think the only way to do that is to have a remake in RE Engine. Not every Resident Evil game needs a remake. But
it would be nice to replay the story of Resident Evil 1 with the Chris from Resident Evil 8 and the Jill from Resident Evil 3 remake kind of in there. So you can play 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it all feels like one because right now trying to play 1, 2, and 3 and then playing 4 and 5 is really jarring.
Yes.
So it would be nice to be able to experience those stories in a way that's more consistent in how it is delivered.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And also, I love Resident Evil 1, and I'm a big, like, I spend so much money on upscalers and stuff. And the real and honest reason behind that is because it gives me a reason to replay video games. Like, Final Fantasy VII is incredible. Final Fantasy VII upscaled to 4K. just as incredible. It's amazing, but I want to play through it and be like, oh yeah, I wonder what that scene looks like, what that pre-rendered background looks like, upscaled to 4K, where I could see all the JPEG compression in it and stuff, or the battle scenes. What does that summon look like, sharp as hell? So I will do I'll do anything to replay a video game, and remakes are very much part of that.
I love that your favorite song was gone for 30 seconds. It comes back to us talking about Resident Evil, even though that's not even on.
It was bound to happen.
That's how it always goes. Speaking of other remakes, what you know, do you think they're gonna remake Silent Hill 3 next?
I would say, and this is coming from the only thing I would say is informing this is a general, like, foundational baseline knowledge of how business works. Konami, and this is all stuff that hasn't been confirmed. I talked about this with my buddy Benny from the Cross Circle Squared channel. Okay, I had to make sure I got the name right. Cross Circle Squared. It's a really good channel. But anyways, he came to Tokyo to visit, and we filmed a podcast in my living room, and we both sort of theorized that Bloober Team has been a double A developer for a very long time. You couldn't really call them triple A, but you certainly couldn't say indie about them. So I would imagine they couldn't demand very much for a Silent Hill remake. And Konami is sort of being the only reason we're seeing Delta and Silent Hill 2 and a lot of the Suikoden remasters is because Konami's being forced back into the game sector because COVID hit them very hard. Here in Japan, gym equipment and gambling stuff, Konami was making most of their money on, and they really only cared about the soccer game. Was it Winning 11, I think?
Yeah.
Whatever soccer series.
Bitch, Konami.
Yeah, so that's the only reason we're seeing them in the game sector is because they're being forced financially here. I would imagine they don't have a ass load of money to throw around to anybody. And Bloober Team, if I was an investor in Konami, I would not okay a very large amount of money going to them for this project, proportionally speaking. So I would say Konami probably didn't spend comparable to a modern day video game very much on Silent Hill 2 Remake, but the amount of positive press it has gotten them in terms of advertising is probably, by orders of magnitude multiplied the amount of money they put into it. Mm-hmm. So I would say a future remake, whether it be Silent Hill 1 or Silent Hill 3, fingers crossed for Silent Hill 3, if they treat it like they did 2.
Really? You want them to do 3 instead of 1?
Yeah, I think so, but that's because 3's my favorite. And to see a redesign of Heather Mason a la the redesign of James in Silent Hill 2 Remake it would be incredible.
No, because they'll wokify her.
They might wokify her, they might. They might change her clothes, and I fully go into that understanding the chance of the woke infection getting into it.
3 is a direct sequel to 1, though. Like a direct sequel. Like you can't play 3 and not at least know what happened in 1 in some regard.
I know how illogical it is. I just want to see it so bad.
I don't think that do you absolutely need to play 1?
Yeah.
I mean, Heather is a character. The big reveal that she is, spoiler alert, but if you haven't played 3, stop listening right now. The reveal that she is Alessa at the end of 3 is, even to me as a Silent Hill fanatic, even when 3 came out, I was like, what? Like, it blew me away.
Again, spoilers. Harry's death doesn't mean anything if you don't know who he is, who Heather is, her character arc, what her significance. Literally every single thing about her character is meaningless, though. Yeah. I mean, I guess you could still play it and be like, you're being introduced to this new world that isn't expositing to you. That's a cool idea. I kind of have a crackpot idea that they should just remake 1 and 3 together as one game that plays seamlessly from 1 to 3 with a time skip, and just call it Silent Hill something like some subtitle.
Would never fucking happen. That would be cool.
No, hell no.
Fuck. That would be sick.
They tried doing that with RE2 and 3 together, and that's why we got 3 Remake as botched as it was. Even though I liked it, they had to cut stuff, and there was a lot of issues.
I wish they had done it, though. I wish they had actually released it like they were trying.
Would have been interesting, yeah.
I will say this, as nitpicky as I've been about Silent Hill 2 Remake, I do want to say this, regardless, because you were saying the thing about the positive press and everything, regardless, this is, regardless of my little fucking things here and there and me being so, you know, autistic about this game, it is the best Silent Hill game that's been released in a very long time.
Cannot deny it.
Extremely long time.
Probably since Shattered Memories, I would say.
Maybe even it's probably better than Shattered Memories.
It's a better video game than any modern, and I say modern post Silent Hill 4. For me, post Silent Hill 3.
Yeah.
Video game as far as like a playable experience and a good story and great graphics, and like it is leagues beyond anything else that's been released post Team Silent.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think that is fantastic. But I say this all with the caveat that I've seen some people now saying online that because Bloober did so good with Silent Hill 2, they should get to make their own Silent Hill game.
Hard disagree.
I can't get on that train just yet.
No.
Listen, one game does not erase.
Well, and they're working from blueprints.
Write.
Yes.
It's the game they didn't write.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So they're working from blueprints. So we're not seeing the storytelling prowess of Bloober Team. We're seeing the editorial prowess of Bloober Team.
And
just give them 1 or 3.
Give
them 4. Fuck it. Let's just go straight to the road.
I would be super
It'd be nice to
happy
make
with
that
4.
like a good video game. That'd be nice.
Yes.
Yeah, and also it's the only one you can jump to where you don't, because 4 didn't tie into fucking anything, and you don't have to explain the cult.
Yeah. That was something I said on my stream too. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a good remake studio. Like, if that's what they become known for, and they just
That's what Aspire is.
do that really well. I mean,
Night Dive is.
Blue Point, you know, like just do that and do it well, and that's great. But I don't.
I let them remake the short message.
Yeah, that one needs to be a good video game.
Or a video game at all.
Yeah. I mean, well, they're what? So they announced 5 projects back with that transmission. They're 1 for 3 now, right?
Yeah.
1 for 3. So they're getting that record up a little bit. They just got, if they get 2 more hits, it was better than 50%.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a better track record than they've been known to have so far. The last time they did a mass Silent Hill announcement of a bunch of different projects at once, they were all terrible.
Yeah, we didn't get a hit. We didn't get one that was good.
to at least some degree. Like, for example, Homecoming, I have a soft spot for it, but you can't argue that it's like terribly optimized. It just looked bad, even for the time that it was released.
It actually doesn't run on Steam, even if you buy it. If you buy it on Steam, it won't. You have to like install a bunch of like fixes and shit. It won't run. It actually won't fucking run.
And it's even on
Downpour's not even on PC, is it?
Even with its it's not. Nope. Thank God. Even with its PC port, like you're capped at 30 frames per second and 720p max, which is like wild to think about that was because that was it in its original state. That's how it launched.
Yeah.
I remember having to like modify it in order to get 1080p and 60 frames per second when I had like a GTX 770. Like it was a really bad PC release.
Yeah. So it is weird to see something come out that is actually good. You know, I have nitpicks, but it is overall good. It is a good game. And I would people, you know, I've been talking about this and people are like, yeah, but should I play it? And I'm like, probably. I'm being weird. I don't know what's wrong with me. Just play it. I would probably recommend it to anybody that's interested. And I was going to talk about that a little bit. You had said you don't think that the budget for this game was too big.
I don't think so. I think I would imagine proportionally compared to like developing a video game. Like, for example, Metal Gear Delta, I would imagine had more resources than Silent Hill 2 Remake, which
Yeah.
makes sense because
it's being
just from a
developed
business
in-house.
perspective, Silent Hill has never been like a money-making series for Konami. It was more of a cult following type of deal. The release of 2 on the PS2 was huge because it was part of the PS2's release hype and how powerful it was going to be as a video games console. And the 60 frame per second cutscenes were a major part of like people buying PS2s at the time. But other than that, Silent Hill 1 sold more than expected for sure, but it didn't even touch Resident Evil 1 at the time.
Yeah.
Silent Hill 3 sold, I think it's probably the worst selling one in the series, despite being the best in my opinion. So this is not a series that Konami could effectively tell investors, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to shift like 40% of our income towards this project. It would that wouldn't fly.
But Delta's being developed in-house, right? And they
in-house, and
it's
a historically money-making series. Yeah.
So I imagine they're a lot more confident giving money to their in-house development team than they are paying milestones to Bloober.
Yeah.
I mean, Delta is going to do fucking infinitely better than Silent Hill 2.
And it looks great too.
Yeah. Actually,
I think everything that they spent on Silent Hill 2 Remake is going to come back to them in terms of critical acclaim, advertising, and general like audience, what would you say?
Like goodwill.
There you go. That's they have lost all of their goodwill, and they've effectively bought it back by funding the remake of Silent Hill 2. I would imagine it's selling pretty good because the critical response has been really good, and a lot of people are talking about it on social media. I imagine that's driving a lot of purchases towards the series, and it's probably going to make more than its budget back. I would assume.
Son and I were talking about this earlier this week. I think it's going to sell its best today, tomorrow, and Sunday, particularly because it hasn't had a weekend yet, and there's a lot of people who are probably waiting to the weekend to buy it and then play it when they're not at work. A lot of
it came out on a
regular
fucking
jobs.
Tuesday. I don't know what
came out on a Tuesday. So there's a lot of people who have probably just been going to work every day and like, dude, I can't wait to play Silent Hill this weekend. As soon as I get off work on Friday, I'm grabbing it and I'm playing it, you know? So I imagine
I played Delta, by the way. I forgot to mention that. Well, I secondhand played Delta.
You should probably talk about that right now.
How was it?
Okay, so I played it. I was at Tokyo Game Show, and you have to like get a ticket to play Delta at Tokyo Game Show because it's such a big draw, even during on the press day when it's not quite so busy. But my wife, and my friend Benny, I was talking about before, we all went to Tokyo Game Show. We got there right when the doors opened, and immediately they had already given away all the tickets for the first session of playthroughs of Delta. So we lined up for the second one like 20 minutes early before it was supposed to go down, and we missed that cutoff by like 20 people.
No.
So we were pretty sad because we wanted to play Silent Hill 2, but there wasn't a playable demo at TGS. I assume because it was so close to being done, it didn't matter for them anymore. But it was like a visual presentation, which was kind of cool. But we didn't get to do that, and we didn't get to play Delta. And we were like, oh, damn it. This is like a whole day that's kind of shot. So I was like, okay, this is the first time that I've gotten in with like content creator credentials, essentially. You have to like show them your YouTube channel when you show up to pick up your badge and everything. But this was my first time being able to get into the influencer area, and it's like it says like influencer area. You get free Monster Energy drinks when you go in. They just give them to you.
Yo, that's sick.
It's pretty dope, and I'm really unhealthy, so that helps. But yeah. So we walked in the first floor. They have this thing you can sign, and like this area where you can film, and they have like cameras set up, and you just like plug in your stream info or whatever, and you can like broadcast from there. And we were like, oh, that's interesting. It's not, you know, me or my friend's forte, but you know, it's fun to be in this area. And then we're like, oh wait, there's a second floor. And on the second floor, they had a bunch of demos that just like wasn't available to the general public. And one of them was MGS Delta. So we found out that you have to sign up for a time slot. And some guy had finished playing early. And I went up to the lady in like my most polite Japanese, and I'm like, please, can we just take the rest of his time, if that's possible? And with Japanese people, doing anything that's outside of the set rules that are already in place is like, I asked for a melon soda float at a bakery once, and I was like, hey, could I not get ice? And she had like called a manager over, and the manager was like, so let me get this straight. You don't want ice. And I was like, yeah, it's just like the soda float, but the ice kind of gets in the way of the ice cream. And he's like, I mean, I guess. Like, so this is like kind of how like Japanese customer service works. So I asked her, she had to grab a manager, and I had to plead my case to him. And he's like, okay, but you have to be off in 20 minutes because another guy has a time that he's going to come in here. So between me and my friend Benny, we both love MGS3, and he had just replayed it. And I haven't played MGS3 in probably like 6 or 7 years. So I was like, okay, Benny, you play it. You know MGS3 more than I do. And I trust his opinion, but he essentially was telling me that it felt like a hot.
Hold on.
Oh,
20-pound dono from Crow. Thank you.
Salute.
Soldiers. It's a greatly presented 2024 game, but Silent Hill 2 Remake greatly lacks most of the emotional depth of the OG. Even the most emotional scenes leave more to be desired. It's an assembly line version of Team Silent's original vision. It's fair.
I can see that take. I honestly can see that.
If it's good enough to bring the series back to life, then whatever. That's fine.
It's the sacrifice we must make.
No, I could see that. That's why going into it, I was very interested because I'm not emotionally attached to SH2. And I knew that the changes that they would make, I would be able to look at in a more, and no offense to Crosis, I would be able to look at in a less biased, sort of like as objective a take as I could have. Because Silent Hill 2 has always been a good video game to me, and I've always appreciated the story, but it wasn't hitting me in my soul the way that it does a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, MGS Delta, it looks awesome. Like visually, it's really good looking. It runs really smoothly. It's got great frame time based on what I've seen. He says gameplay feels like a combination of the controls of Metal Gear Solid 3 and the general movement and mechanics of Metal Gear Solid Phantom Pain.
Yes.
So he was,
back.
Yes.
I'm thinking we're back.
Yeah, it was very, very positive from him. And that's a guy who I trust his opinion, and he's just recently played it. And Metal Gear Solid 3 was like a really big deal for him. He loved it. So he had and he's also a fucking like staunchly how would you put this? He's just like he thinks what he thinks, and he doesn't give a shit if it like goes against something he thought earlier, or like he loves a game. That doesn't mean he's going to love the remake. He's not going to go in with bias as much. So I trust his opinion, and he was saying, yeah, this is fresh as hell.
That's so exciting. I have a similar feeling to you with MGS3's remake, because that is not my favorite game in the series. So I actually don't give a shit if they fuck it up.
Yeah. It is my favorite game in the series, actually.
Well, the good thing about Delta is it's the entire foundation. It's Metal Gear Solid 3 is running essentially underneath all of the stuff that they made. It is Metal Gear Solid 3, the same voice lines, and the characters have been touched up, but it's in a way to literally just make them look better. And there hasn't been any redesigns in terms of like, boss doesn't look the same. It's like it's boss, and it's boss's animations tied to rigged to a different model.
We need like a name for this, like an event, a something event when a remake is actually shaping up to be the best case scenario. They're reusing the same voice lines. Every character reveal we've seen looks fantastic. Everything they're touching base with the audience. They're being very transparent. They're saying, we hear these criticisms, but we're sorry. We're not gonna do anything about these up front. This is shaping up to be some kind of insert here event where this might be I don't know if we're gonna see another remake this good, or at the very least this transparent and like
Well, I think it's faithful. Yeah, like
Yeah.
this is literally what every fan asks for when they make a remake, is like, just make it look a little bit better, make it control a little bit better, and use the same voice lines, and don't fuck with anything else. And that's kind of what they're doing.
Let me make a very controversial statement here. I would argue the same thing goes for The Last of Us Part 1, the remake. I think it's the same as Delta. It's the guts of Silent Hill 1 are still running in the background, but they have replaced every single 3D model in the game, every single 2D mesh. They have recreated all of the original animations. They didn't use motion capture information. They redid all of the facial animations by hand. And it is incredible. That game was marred on release because, like, it's the same as the original. It is graphically so fucking different. It's wild. I did a video on it, on the Last of Us remake, just the entire Last of Us 1, like its original PS3 release, the PS4 remaster, PS4 Pro mode, and then the remake. And the difference between 60 FPS on PS4 and playing it on PS3 with the fidelity of not native but 4K visuals, it's incredible looking. It runs really well. The animations are fucking amazing. The light work for an engine that already existed that they were modifying, it is wild. I think it's the Metal Gear Solid Delta. It is part of the event that you're describing, I would say.
It is
just got that for RE4.
It is, but the game should have come out like 10 years later.
It did.
Like 10 years later than it did.
Really? Because The Last of Us, this is a 10-year jump from The Last of Us's original release to the remake.
Okay, this is my opinion on, because I kind of felt similarly about like The Last of Us remake. Didn't they remake part 2 too? Or they're doing it right now?
It's like a remaster. It's already out. It's like a remaster.
Yeah.
I think that as time goes on, so in the earlier generations, for example, you could have taken a PS1 game and remastered it on in the PlayStation 2 era, one console generation away, and you would have seen a large graphical jump, PS2 to PS3, similar, PS3 to PS4. But as time goes on, we haven't been making graphical leaps like that. We just don't make those leaps anymore in technology, other than maybe like fucking DLSS or something. But so you have to, in my opinion, you have to start elongating the time between remakes to actually see like a reason for it. Because in my mind, the two reasons for a remake is increasing graphical fidelity for a modern audience, or updating gameplay so that the gameplay isn't dated anymore. But the thing is, gameplay and trends in gameplay have also slowed down and have not changed as much in recent years. So you still have the same like time elongation that you need between remakes, because what fucking new trend? Like, it's just the same. They're all fucking. You just walk and it's the same gameplay. We haven't really changed that much in that time. That's why I see a difference. I think you thought that remake was cool, and you were probably the only one that did, was because you noticed that shit and pay attention to those small details.
I will say though, as far as gameplay goes, shooting feels like orders of magnitude better in the remake compared to the original. And I would hazard you to just, at the very least, load up my video and look at the comparisons between PS3 and remake. It is a wild jump. But I see what you're getting at. You are correct. We have kind of reached a point of diminishing returns for sure. But even looking at 1080p on the PS4 versus the PS5 in terms of like sharpness and clarity, not counting that they redesigned all of the characters to look a little more realistic in the same way that Silent Hill 2 Remake has done. I would say that surface level, if you were to just look at The Last of Us Part 1, that you would be really justified in saying that. having played it, the difference in like gunplay, like actually shooting at people feels so much better. Because I went through and I beat The Last of Us on PS3, PS4, PS5, and PS4 Pro mode, and
Shit,
then
I could beat it.
the remake. Like I didn't have to beat it all of those times.
Yeah.
But I really like The Last of Us, which is weird because I don't play a lot of modern video games. But I really like it. And then I played the remake after playing all 3 iterations of the original and having like a really solid grasp of how they function, because I gotten to the point where I'd become really proficient at the game because I'd beaten it so many times. And then playing the remake, I was like, oh wow, like this feels like noticeably better if you were to go from one to the other. But because it's been 10 years, you're like me, you, and everybody else, our memories of The Last of Us are much better than what it was. I mean, screen tearing was awful in that game. 30 frames per second felt disgusting. 720p, blurry as hell, not very detailed. But at the time playing that PS3 game, it was incredible looking. And then it blew me away playing it again and seeing it for myself and seeing how it handled at 30 frames per second. It's such a huge jump, but
Damn.
I think our memories of how good it looked is very like marred with rose tinted glasses.
That's fair. That's fair. I did not play it, so I do not know. But yeah, that's fair. I just think it's, and maybe I'm wrong about that we're already in that era, but I think that era is coming soon where
I don't think you're wrong, actually.
I think
the difference between Resident Evil and Resident Evil Remake was less than 10 years and more noticeable than
for sure
Last of Us 1.
That's true.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
I think obviously we're not, right? Because the Last of Us Remake obviously sold enough to warrant them to do it again with part 2. So it's not like people aren't buying these things, but I think there's going to come a point where it's like, we literally can't remake this game. There's no point. It's been 10 years in a console generation, but nothing's really changed. Hopefully that's not the situation we're in. Hopefully, at least gameplay is drastically better or something, but I don't know.
I feel like we're going to get to a point where just higher frame rates are going to be the real sticking point, because like you said, we already are. I think you're right. We're at a point of nearing diminishing returns on the amount of effort put in versus the visual difference between 2 games as far as remake goes. It's going to be really hard to take like a modern release game. I don't like God of War, the latest God of War game, remaking that video game, even a crazy graphic snob like me, I probably would not, that wouldn't warrant a remake, for the next generation, unless we come across some wild shit as far as like hardware goes, which is not going to happen. We have definitely reached a point where you're just not going to be able to tell anymore.
We would have to stumble upon some sort of crashed alien pod.
Yeah, exactly.
And find a new technology. I do think though that probably, because if I do envision the future of games and how gameplay is like getting better, I think gameplay we also aren't. It's just everything's refining, right? Because like we were. In the earlier generations, we were trying to make movement more realistic and shooting more realistic and all this stuff. And I think it's just going to eventually get to a point where the trend.
That's it. You're on my shit.
Wilson, thank you for the 5 bones. Cough. Oh, sorry. Here, I'll act it out for you. Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem remake.
Not gonna happen.
Unfortunately,
Nintendo owns it. Sorry, man.
It's never gonna happen. It sucks because it's a really cool video game.
Nintendo didn't even know they own it.
Yeah,
they just know they own the patent from it. They know what the patent is, but they don't know.
But I think like we were trying to make movement more realistic, and
it did not expire.
I think we're eventually going to get to the point where we have to go back. I think you're already seeing this with indies and stuff where, it's like, look at the biggest and best indies of the past year. It's Animal Well, it's Crow Country, it's, all these games that are incredibly low fidelity and using those creative bounds as best they can. I think the AAA market is eventually going to have to follow, probably in some way, shape, or form, because it's not working currently.
They're going to have to reduce their budgets, and they're going to have to start greenlighting original projects.
Not like we're not going to see fucking a 32-bit game from a AAA studio that's like their flagship title or anything, but
you can only
like
port
AA
Horizon games so many fucking times. All right,
that should be your next one. You should you should figure out if the Horizon remakes are better.
I played that with my wife, and it was like all right, but I don't really like open world games. I don't know what it is. I'm not a huge
open world fan either. Yeah.
There's something about that fucking game that I'm like a, for lack of a better term, an axe murderer when I see it. Like I just want to cut it into tiny pieces. I don't know. It's so, I
boring.
don't get anything about it. Like I literally don't understand why people like it.
I think the concept is interesting, like robot dinosaurs.
Yeah.
But I think a Yahtzee from Zero Punctuation put it best, where like they started with the words robot dinosaurs on a piece of paper and just worked their way down from there.
Yeah.
There is a type of person, okay, who likes to watch like really predictable cookie cutter like Netflix shows and stuff. That is who these Horizon games are for, because they're very the Horizon games seem to like take care of you. You know, the Horizon games are it's okay. Nothing's going to happen. Look, there's the enemy. You got this. That's what it feels like to play a fucking Horizon game. All right. And it's insufferable, but there's people who want that. They want the game to like take care of them while they play it.
Yeah.
That's the vibe I get from those fucking games.
Yeah.
And yeah, Killzone died for them, and it's not worth it.
That's true. But we did get Death Stranding out of it, kind of.
Death Stranding doesn't even do that. You would think it would. Death Stranding looks like the kind of game that would do that, but it doesn't.
No, they have they work on
the
Decima
engine. I know what you mean. I was just thinking about that description of Horizon looks exactly like what Death Stranding looks like to someone who hasn't played it.
Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But then you mentioned that Kojima made it and he didn't have a Wrangler on that project, and they're immediately like, "Oh, I see. So it's batshit insane. Okay, I could play this."
Yeah.
Death Stranding is the best thing to come out of the Horizon Zero Dawn series.
That's a very interesting take. Yeah.
That's so funny. I never even thought of that. There's because I'm doing a video on it right now, and there's like a weird like interview in the game that talks about like the Horizon world or something. I can't remember.
I remember that, yeah.
There's like some weird fucking like crossover thing, because Kojima was like so thankful that team let him use the Decima engine and all this stuff, and like
it crosses over with multiple games. You playing the director's cut?
Yes, yeah. There's like a side.
You find the Portal companion cube yet?
Yeah.
And the Half-Life stuff.
Yeah, there's like a Half-Life
weird
thing. But yeah, there's a lot of really weird things. I didn't even mention those in my review. I was trying to figure out like a place where to put, and I was just like, you know what, this doesn't fucking matter. It's not important.
But there's a companion cube in it.
Why does it matter? You know, that's just like, there's certain things in Kojima games where you're like, you know what, he just did this because he fucking wanted to, and I don't need to talk about this. Like that was just, he just wanted to, and you know, that's okay. That's all right. That's what makes it a Kojima game.
This is where I'm at with Silent Hill 2 Remake, because as I'm playing it, I'm obviously in my head making an inventory of things that I want to talk, and I have a notes on a Google Doc, and it's like some of this stuff. Do I need to mention it? Like, is it important to mention that you can break out windows now? Because it doesn't really matter. I mean, like, I guess for traversal, but like, I don't really even like it's. Cool, and I find it to be interesting, but like, does it need to be in a video on Silent Hill 2 Remake that you can break out car windows? Because does that matter?
I think it does matter, but only because it is a mechanic and it is a thing to do beyond just wandering the road. And you might not notice it because you're just naturally flowing into it. But I remember when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is going to make walking around Silent Hill a lot more interesting just because it gives the player something to interact with and do that makes them feel like they're searching and accomplishing something beyond just like cinematically walking down the street like an E3 trailer.
In that same sense, what I've noticed with Silent Hill 2 is a lot of the items are inside of things now instead of just sitting out in the open.
Yeah.
In the original, you'd be running around Silent Hill and you'd find a health drink on the corner on the sidewalk, but now it'd be in a car or in a drawer or up in a dresser or something like that, which again, it's like, I don't know if it's even worth putting that in a video because it's just kind of like, it sounds weird to try to rationalize, oh yeah, stuff is in stuff now.
Yeah.
Like that would be
it does give the player more to do.
It does for sure, but I just don't know if I could make it sound interesting in a video that's already going to be way too long.
Yeah.
Less locked doors.
Yeah. There's, I mean, that's what I'm going through too. And there's like so many things with that, with like the lines that are removed. Like there's a line that's removed in like the graveyard scene or something. And it's like, but it has literally no fucking impact on.
Well, only one line actually mattered that they removed. All the other ones were.
The pizza one. Yeah, that's fair.
That's the only one that mattered.
Oh, I forgot about Lego Horizon.
Everyone did, I think. Most people.
Completely
except for that
forgot.
one comment.
Did you guys also forget about the Lego Pharrell Williams movie?
What?
No, that was a thing.
You didn't know about this?
This is like a Mandela effect thing.
They announced, completely forgot about this, but they announced a movie a few months ago that was a Pharrell Williams biopic that's done in Lego. It's called Piece by Piece.
Why not?
Is Pharrell Williams' existence interesting enough to warrant a biopic?
Hey, come on,
No,
dude.
that's why they made it Lego.
He was in Nerd, bro.
Honestly, Nerd was pretty good.
Nerd's probably the best thing he's ever done, to be honest.
What was that one song? Some Rockstar? I think that was it.
I think maybe. I don't know. I don't think that's what it was called.
Touch me, I'm a rock star. I forget. Yeah.
That's like it. That song that's in everything.
Some executive in Hollywood was getting pitched this biopic, and he was like messing with like a Lego set, and he was like, I don't know how we're gonna make this interesting. And the guy with the script was like, well, I think we might make money. What do we do? And he was like playing with his Lego set, and he goes, I have an idea. They make it Lego.
They should make a movie about that. About
the creation
event.
process.
Yeah, the biopic.
Like the Game Boy movie that came out.
Yeah. Because I went to the movies last night, and while I was there, I saw that poster was up, and it was like Piece by Piece, and I was like, "What the fuck is that?" And it was like out. It was like playing in theaters, and I looked it up on my phone, and I was like, "Who?" In the same vein, the movie I went to see last night was a movie about. It was a biopic about Saturday Night Live. The first, it's the hour and a half before their first show. Have either of you heard about this movie?
I saw one ad for it, and I'd forgotten it existed until you just mentioned it.
Hadn't heard about it at all. I went and saw that last night. There's just so much fucking shit out now that you can't keep track of it.
You mean you didn't go see Joker Folie à Deux?
I already saw it, pal.
Oh, did you?
And guess what? I actually kind of liked it.
I fucking knew you would. That's the exact kind of asinine, pretentious, artistic bullshit that he loves. He loves movies that want to stuff how artsy they are down your throat at the expense of yourself.
Did you see it?
Fuck no.
Exactly. So you can't.
But I saw Synecdoche, New York. I saw that shit. I lost those hours of my life.
I actually did. I did like the second show. I thought it was fine. There's no. Everyone's crazy. There's nothing there.
Well, I like DC Comics, so a movie that
I thought the Joker was good. I don't like the idea that it's mostly a musical, but that's what I've heard. I haven't seen it, so I'm not sure if that's the case.
It is. Well, there's a lot of musical numbers in it.
Yeah, it is kind of mostly a musical. I think one of the best things about the movie that they did was I'm a huge fan of. I don't really like musicals, but I'm a huge fan of Les Miserables, the one that they did with Hugh Jackman. Yeah. And I like that movie because they recorded all of the songs live on set, which they don't do that in musicals very much. And it sounds so much more raw, and it sounds like a lot more emotional. And they did that in Joker 2 as well. And that was one of the big things that I liked about it. as well. There was a lot of things I thought it was fine. It wasn't like the best movie, but it wasn't. Everybody's saying it's like the worst fucking thing ever made. It was fine.
It's not the worst fucking thing ever made because of what it is as a movie. It's the worst fucking thing ever made because of what it should be.
I think if you watch the movie, I don't see any like hatred of the audience in the movie.
I've seen clips of it, but it's from the concept, not the film itself. It'd be like if Metal Gear Solid 6 came out and Kojima made it and it played like fucking Destroy All Humans or something, and he was like, don't you get it? You don't get it? The fact that it doesn't play like Metal Gear is the point. What do you mean you get it but you don't like it? If you got it, you would like it. The fact that it doesn't play like a Metal Gear game, that's the point. What do you mean you wanted Solid Snake to appear? Don't you get it? He isn't in the movie, and you wanting him and not getting it is the point. That's the fucking movie. There is no Joker. He was never the Joker. Don't you get it? I get
because
I understand what he's going through right now, though, because I had the same problem when Childish Gambino released This Is America, because it was the hardest beat I've ever heard in my life, with the most trash lyrics anybody's ever put to a song.
Great production.
And everybody was like, no, that's the point, is that the fucking chorus is trash and it's so like bad. It's like, no, but the end result is still the same.
Yeah, it's like, I get it, but it doesn't make it good. The fact that it's bad on purpose doesn't reach back around to make it good. It still just sucks.
But that beat is so good, though.
It is a good beat. It's not. I thought it was going to be bad too going into it, but it really wasn't. There was nothing wrong with that movie. Nothing.
I'm willing to give it a shot.
There was a few things wrong with the movie. I think if you liked the first Joker and you could get on board with the idea that this is not like Christopher Nolan Joker. This is not the real Joker. This is just a movie about a guy that inspires Joker later, then you will like the second movie, I think.
It's a movie that wants to leech off of popular source material and a pre-established IP, but not have anything to do with it as much as it can get away with.
I think that's an interesting idea.
Todd Phillips doesn't want to make a movie about a comic book, but he wants the money and budget that comes with that. So he just makes his own fucking movie and then uses that IP to funnel in audiences. And I hate that. I think that's gross.
I thought it was an interesting idea when they like making a movie called Joker, and then it's like not really about, like, it's technically not him. I was like, oh, that's fucking awesome. That's a cool idea.
I will say apparently there is an actual line in the screenplay for the first Joker movie where Todd Phillips wrote, and now he is the Joker, like near the end. And people are like funneling that around Twitter, like awesome. Responding to that line where Todd Phillips like, he was never the Joker. It's like, well, this was so in your screenplay for the first movie. So
I love that. Now
I fucking hate when sequels undo previous movies. I cannot stand that. I really hate that.
I'll say one thing. Because I'm situated physically in between you two on the screen, I'm also situated as far as the opinion goes.
He's our bouncer.
In the middle.
He's holding us back.
I could see you guys chill. I could see the appeal of like a movie called Joker that's not about the comic book Joker, but I weighed that against the possibility of like what the Joker could have been, which was like a really cool, serious and like kind of down to earth look at how like a guy like that, what his origin story could have been, and the opportunity cost of like not getting that movie is pretty annoying. I did like the Joker. I thought it was a really good movie. I would have liked to have seen that dovetail into the Joker, like the actual comic book Joker, because that's what I assumed the ending was getting at, is like, and then this is when shit goes down. And I was expecting for the second one, okay, here's when he like falls into his role as like the Joker in the comic books.
But don't you get it? The fact that they didn't do that was the whole point. They subverted your you just didn't get it. They subverted your expectations. If you just would have gotten it.
No, I think the difference is like I'm pretty sure there was like a article or an interview or something with Todd Phillips where he said after the movie was released that this wasn't the real Joker, that this was
the
just
real
a guy
Joker shows up at the end
that
or whatever.
that this was a guy that inspires the Joker, like the real Joker. He's just a fucking guy. And that was the impression that I went into the second movie with. So I think that was maybe I was more ready for it. I was like, oh, okay, this is just some fucking guy.
Speculatively, I'm translating that to be I didn't want to make a comic book movie based on a character, so I made some shit up and used the Gotham City name, and I name dropped Thomas Wayne and Arkham Asylum, and I threw Harvey Dent in the sequel.
You haven't watched it, so none of your arguments.
That's
stand
not,
up.
I know the fucking. I read the entire fucking plot.
You haven't watched it.
I promise you, I
this.
swear on my life, no movie, no matter how good it is, could make the plot of that movie enjoyable for me.
Does the whole
because it's the plot that I don't like.
To be fair, I went into it and I knew what happened at the end, and I went into it and I was like, I'm not gonna like this. I know what happens. This sounds dumb, but I watched it and I liked it. The Joker is the Joker in that movie until he gets sexually assaulted, and they sexually assault the Joker out of him. That's just spoiled the movie, dude.
Oh, it is.
What the?
It's all over Twitter. Yeah, that happens.
Diddled, really?
Yes, it does happen.
Yeah.
Listen, I liked it. I thought it was good. I'm a Joker 2 defender. I don't think it's the best. It was worse than the first movie, but it was okay. All right.
I wasn't a huge fan of the first movie either, so let me say that.
Yeah, you're probably. I think if you didn't like the first movie, you probably won't like the second one.
Yeah. I thought it was okay.
With that, fantastic ending. That was how we. I don't think most people know, but the show is scripted. Like that, we write all this out, and this is not. It is live. It's like a theater performance. So
we're actors, we're not commentators.
We wrote.
There's a timeline to follow.
Yeah, there's beats. Make sure everybody's on beat, and that went fantastic. But what do you guys have coming up? What do you guys have to plug?
Jared, you first.
Well, I just recently released a video on modern day survival horror games I called RE Clones. Volume 5 of that series, and thanks to the comment section giving me really awesome recommendations, I've got a solid 9 games for another video, so that will be coming up soon. But before that, Silent Hill 2 for sure is going to be coming. But that, for most of my videos, is going to be 1/3 a thought piece on how the game affected me and probably how it compares to the original, and then 2/3 technical analysis, basically.
Yeah, that's fair.
Can we get a hint on that 9-game series? Are you playing that one close to the chest?
Oh no, yeah, it's all Resident Evil clones. It's all just modern indie developed survival horror titles.
I mean,
some of the titles?
Yeah.
Okay. I got a few of them. Into the Dread is one. Broken Pieces, which looks really interesting. The Frozen Garden. These are all ones. The Lacerator is one that I did know about before, which looks really cool. Dead of Darkness, Connection, The Nightmare Within, and then the one I'm most excited for visually, Sorry We're Closed.
Oh, I've heard of that one before, I think.
It looks really cool.
All right. Hell yeah. Go check out the most recent Resident Evil clones.
I actually
video.
just finished watching that one a couple of days ago.
Oh yeah, dude. I really like the way my voice sounded in that one. I'm getting the recording and the EQ stuff down pretty pat, I think.
Yeah, that was some second screen monitor content that day.
Hell yeah, dude.
What about you, Evan?
I'm working currently on the review for Sparking Zero, which obviously is going to be all of my time pretty much from now. I want to have it out next Friday. I'm going to be nose to the grindstone for the next few days, trying to play as much of it as I can, working on getting the video ready. I would like to, 1 week from today, release my review of Sparking Zero. In the meantime, last week, I released a huge video talking about every single Dragon Ball Z game on the PlayStation 2, and the first 3 games in the Sparking series are covered there. So if you want to get ready for that, get prepped for the Sparking Zero video, you can go throw that on your second monitor and listen to me talk about PS2 Dragon Ball Z for 5.5 hours.
And then you'll know everything. You'll be caught up.
Yeah.
I am working on Death Stranding. I just finished recording it today, and I'll have it out next week. And then probably SH2 Remake, and then Alan Wake 2, because the DLC comes out. And I can finally, after a year, do my video on that. But you know what comes way before then? Next Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where you can be back here and watch TGG Plus again, all over.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe we'll talk more about Joker.
We'll definitely talk.